Hello and good morning. It is Saturday, September 4th, 2021, and we are going to be breaking down today Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the newest installment here in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, here on Super Mader Brothers Podcasting. I'm Dave Mader, joined with my brother Jeff Mader, or as he likes to be known as Jeff Morris Mader. Yes, we are. We're going to be. We're also going to be joined by Jaemeel Robinson and maybe even one more potential guest today, as we continue our podcast series to cover each installment since 2021, starting with WandaVision, through Falcon Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Loki, and now to this new installment, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So we're going to be going into full spoilers today. We're here streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you don't want to know anything about the movie, you should get out of here now. But we're hoping you've seen it either Thursday or Friday at this point, or maybe you're going to catch out this stream later on after the fact, whether you catch on our audio only podcast, which will drop wherever you get it, Spotify, Apple Music, all of those are available for us. So Jeff, you and I and my wife Jane, we went last night to go see this at IMAX Theater in Ancaster. We talked a little bit after the show, but nobody else was there, so we'll maybe repeat some of the things we said last night. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I saw an IMAX film.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was great. It was a good movie. I was pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. I learned my lesson on Guardians of the Galaxy because that was another Marvel property thing I didn't know a lot about, right? I grew up reading Iron Man, Spider-Man, all of the mainstream ones, maybe, and Marvel always had a much more expanded universe, as does DC, where they have the space parts, and then they have more of these mystical areas that would tie in with properties like Thor and even with Iron Man, because the Mandarin is obviously a big character in this movie, and the Mandarin is one of the big Iron Man villains. But we never actually got to see them interact in the MCU at all. The true Mandarin, who is in this movie. So I'm excited to talk about all that with you and with Jaemeel once he pops in here. If you have any comments, questions in the stream, make sure that you drop those in. We got Sam here. Hey Sam, glad to join us. Throw your questions. Have you seen it yet out in Newfoundland? We got the Puffy Taco. He's on his way. He's got to get the engine fired up. He's gonna get that bus going. So I don't know. I think maybe we'll jump into the plot maybe once Jaemeel gets here. But just top level, Jeff, what was your you said you enjoyed the film, but what's sort of been resonating with you? I guess not quite. Maybe 12 hours later here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things. This movie covers a lot of different themes. I've been to China, so I kind of understand some of the concepts and some of what they wanted to put into this movie. And it really resonated for me, right? I have a pregnant fiance right now, and a lot of what's going on with that movie, and there's a lot of family oriented community stick together type stuff, mother children relationships, father children relationships. They really hit a lot of different themes, and every character feels earned. Every character feels like they get redeemed at some point in some way, even the bad ones. And I like that because it's not one note. It's not black and white. That because life's gray, nobody's, most people are not even truly evil. They're motivated by something good, usually,
Right.
At least good in their heart. And I think that's kind of what we see here with the Mandarin. I think it's what we see here with Shang-Chi, and we see with her, his sister. We get a lot of different things, and it was just visually beautiful to watch. I had a lot of the same feelings that I had walking out of Avatar or Hero that I did in this movie. Just gorgeous to watch cinematically. And really, I think this movie tops both those movies in theme and cinematography.
Yeah, and like, I think I agree with you that the cinematography was very noticeable because I'd say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a very distinct style. You know, it's sometimes criticized as being very you know, a little bit, I guess, one thing, because they established kind of what the universe looked like in Iron Man 1, right? And that kind of sort of the template that fell through to Avengers and to all of the other movies that came afterwards. Like, they wanted to, they didn't want there to be like the how can these characters interact, right? And so this movie, I felt was maybe one of the biggest divergence from that look, maybe since Black Panther, you know, which had a very a little bit of a different look to it too, more saturated with the colors. Definitely like just everything looked like we were also watching it in IMAX, so it was like just having that experience again was amazing. The cinematography was done by William Pope, who did the Matrix movies, and he's done a number of martial arts movies. And I thought his work in this movie exceeded anything he ever did, even in the Matrix.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned saturation, Dave, because the Matrix, you know, every time they're in the Matrix, it's a green tint, and every time they're outside, it's a purple tint. And I think they were doing a little bit of that in, I forget what the fairy world is called. Do you remember? It's like Tau something.
Right.
But I think there was definitely a tint in that world compared to the real world. It was darker in the real world.
Right. Just got a little bit, some of the footage here, you know, like from the film. It's really all over the place, but beautifully shot. Like, and then of course with the action, which felt very different than most Marvel action. You know, it's martial arts, and it was moving at a different speed, different frame rate. It definitely, it was a nice refresh, but I did love all of the interconnections that they had put in here with, like, you know, the 10 rings, keeping that consistency with that logo right from Iron Man 1. And also having, of course, Trevor Slattery, as played by Ben Kingsley in this movie, kind of tying some things together, and Wong, who also shows up here. And can you see here that they're showing some clips here also from the other science, or I guess the martial arts property they tried, which was Iron Fist, which was considered a bit of a failure. You know, in comparison, like, I'd say was like what I think we've been waiting for a long time in the MCU. I'm just gonna take this down for a sec.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Dave. I think anytime they do a new movie or a new character, they make a conscious effort to, yes, it's still part of the universe, but they're going to make a kung fu action movie, but also it's what's the word I'm looking for? Spiritual and kind of mystical in this movie, which, you know, Doctor Strange kind of deals with, and like, so there's connections, but it stands apart. It's its own thing. And I gotta be honest, I walked into this movie thinking it was going to just be a very pandering movie to the Chinese market, and it is a little bit, but at the same time, it's totally forgivable because of how wonderful the movie is shot, the pacing. I never felt bored. It's funny. It's funny. It's very emotionally involved. Like, you really start to understand all these characters and where they're coming from, and very quickly, very well written, the motivations of everyone makes sense, you know. So that's
you're tracking along with everybody. Yeah, I was never like there was, like, the movie starts with a lot of subtitles, a lot of because it's narrated by the mother, Shang-Chi. Oh, here we got, bring him in. Jaemeel Robinson, good morning.
So
welcome.
Early.
So early to be on here. Yes. Welcome to the podcast.
I was listening on.
Yes, and we're here talking Shang-Chi, and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I'm trying to get my pronunciation down.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, yeah. And breaking this all down this morning. I'm used to talking at night with you guys about this kind of stuff. Jaemeel, so we haven't heard from you yet. You know, I can see you're bright-eyed.
Yes, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So Jeff and I really enjoyed this movie. I think you were hearing some of us on the Twitch stream already. So where I don't know how you feel. Did you like it?
I did enjoy watching the film. You know what? So much so that I'll probably watch it a second time. How I would do so, it's a very good question. I might go to the drive-in with my folks to watch it because my introduction to the martial arts genre is via my dad. A lot of the Shaw Brothers films, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Once Upon a Time in China is an example. So uh, this genre has a family connection to me. So yeah, I definitely want to experience it with my family. Uh, I share a lot of the same sentiments that others do. You guys do considering the film. I think that the word when you have an introduction to a new hero, there's always the feeling that this could be bad because a lot of times it's going to be a departure from previous films. They want you to introduce something new. They want you to introduce this new character, and rather than it being a rehash of what we previously seen, you see a lot more ambition, right, in the type of character.
Yes. Well,
And sometimes
I
you have, sorry, sometimes you have better results, like we've seen with Black Panther, and sometimes we don't have great results with Captain Marvel, for example. And I actually do like that film, but it isn't the departure that other introductory films have been, right? It
right.
seems very simplistic in its presentation. There's not really it doesn't really try anything ambitious in terms of its first film. This one you see the exact opposite. It's very ambitious in terms of its presentation. Even to its score has a distinct score, just like Black Panther.
Mhm.
That just imagine these characters interacting with others, and you might start hearing the specific lines of the score, and you're like, oh, that's Shang-Chi coming. Just like if you hear the drums, right, the talking drum, you know that someone from Wakanda might be involved with a situation. And that's just creating distinct worlds. Sorry, Dave. I'm
No, no,
trying to
no, no,
catch
no.
up.
I'm listening and I'm tracking along with all of it. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think like the point that thought I was having as you were speaking was about like the MCU's had this kind of challenge that every time they introduce a new hero, they have to do their origin story, And I think you brought up Captain Marvel, but I was thinking more about like even Ant-Man or even Doctor Strange, which were fine and they were good, but it's like we kind of got to go paint by establish their origin, what their thing was, their arc. They're gonna have to fight a villain that's probably have the exact same powers as they do, and then they're going to defeat them, and they're going to become the master of those powers, or whatever. And I guess that kind of happens here too a little bit, but it feels. I guess the non-linear storytelling, I think, is also a way they get around that because is just kind of breaking it out, and the fact that we have this character as played by Aquafina in Katie, who is kind of like our at least felt like my proxy in the movie, sort of like the average person who's just kind of along for the ride, right? Along for the adventure.
Sorry, just to interrupt you there for a second. Did Aquafina like study Pauly Shore's career and just like, hey, let's just do the exact same thing but smarter and make more money? Because she plays a good sidekick, right? And she doesn't like overwhelm the movie in terms of like I'm the breakout star or anything like that. She fits very well. She understands the tone of whatever film she's in. Same thing with Crazy Rich Asians. Like she plays that sidekick like so well, so well.
Yeah, well, like, and I don't. Okay, well, I haven't seen Crazy Rich Asians, so I haven't. I'm not even really. I've heard of her. I thought she was a singer, but apparently no, a comedian.
She's a rapper. No, she's a rapper.
A rapper. Oh, she's a
Yeah.
rapper. Okay, so she is a musician of sorts. Okay. Well, not of sorts, a musician, a rapper, and so I know I think she's from New York, right, or somewhere in that area, but she was, to me, like the breakout star of this because I wasn't as familiar with her. Yeah, although, okay, like Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, I guess he's the breakout star as well because this is like he's never really been in much as far as I understand before this. This is like definitely a big leap for him to be in the starring role.
Dare you, Dave? He was in Kim's Convenience.
He was in Kim's. Well, was he the star of it?
No.
Well, I would say he was a principal character in terms of the ratio of important storylines. He was right behind Appa and Uma.
Did
in
he play a
terms of-
Korean on that show?
Yes.
Which is kind of why they make that joke about Gangnam Style. It's like, I'm not Korean, dude. Like, yeah.
Interesting. Well, okay, them as a pair in this movie is kind of the magic of the movie for me. Like, although there's all of this other rich family drama that kind of also reminded me a little bit of Black Widow, which was the other one we had just talked about 2 podcasts ago, with that having sort of the Black Widow and her sister, and of course her kind of like her surrogate parents, I suppose, of sorts, in that one, and then but in this case, it's biological parents. I didn't have any expectations coming into this, also, and finding out too that he was he's the son of the Mandarin.
This is the other star of the movie, Morris.
But no, that has a face, Jeff. That Morris has a face.
It's not a chicken turkey with legs.
Yeah, I gotta find a. Do I have a photo?
It's Katie.
Yeah,
Cool.
I only have this photo, but where he's. Yeah, this thing was cute. And the whole world of Ta Lo, I think, is also like something that's really sticking with me a day later. Or not even quite a day later, is how beautiful that world looked, and like much like Asgard, and those other realms that are like just kind of I wish I could go there. It sparks the imagination. It seems like when she was telling all the legend, and Michelle Yeoh in this movie, like the cast, everyone is fantastic. I don't know where sometimes to start, but I guess I'm just going high level with all of like my thoughts. I think definitely like these, when I keep coming back to these two, comedic gold in this movie.
Well, they are the crux of the story. Like, you're right, Dave. Like, they are the capstones. They begin and end the movie, and they do. You can tell they're genuine friends. It's not shoehorned that they have to be romantic. There's the whole thing, when you guys gonna get married, from Katie's mom, and there's all that stuff that I think is, again, more realistic. It feels less like a movie, and it feels more real. But we're dealing with fantasy realms, and we're dealing with murder assassin groups, and like, again, like, a lot of this stuff is fantastical, but Marvel does such a great job in making it believable, and so that's where it sucks you in and gets you to go along for this ride.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I just feel like the fact that they work like these, I guess, as the valet jobs, right? It feels like, and the plot of this movie is like, what are you doing with your life? Because like they meet like their parents, or her parents, I guess, and her family are like, you can't work as a valet forever. You have to become a doctor, or whatever they're kind of pushing for. And then also, her friend, right? Like their other friend from high school, I guess, that they meet up with at the bar, like sort of at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie. And that's kind of the arc, right? Like, you guys are so talented. You're so amazing. You're meant to do great things. And they're like, we want to live for us. We want to do what feels good. We want to go out partying, singing karaoke all night, and going on joy rides. And, they're kind of unapologetically them, but there's also kind of this push where they're like, no, but we are meant to do great things as well,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can kind of have it both ways.
Well, I think it's a struggle too. Like, I think a little bit of is true. Like, they're hiding. Like, literally at the beginning of the movie, Shang-Chi is hiding from his father, and so he's in a life that is, he's. We find out later it's because he killed somebody that he believes was responsible for his mother's death, and he went into like this hiding, and he chose the name Sean when his real name is Shang-Chi, which is, Katie has the great joke with him on the plane. And again, like, every scene works, Jaemeel, like, what did you think about like how they set up these characters and kind of dive us into the world first of the 10 Rings, and then the world of Ta Lo?
One thing that I was very happy about was that there wasn't any huge exposition drops where it just seemed like I'm just gonna sit here and just gonna throw everything at you. There's a logical progression in terms of information being provided, right? Shang is not gonna necessarily give the entire story to Katie at the beginning because he's still like he's not ready to confront a lot of aspects. So you have that plain conversation, and in the plain conversation he doesn't he kind of vaguely states that he does not kill the individual that he's told to assassinate, right? And then later when their relationship comes to another level, and he also, in terms of understanding himself in this world, is able to emit this information and come to terms with how things are. Katie, at the same time, she is not saying she's in a rut per se, but she has put her life into a specific little ball, right? And she enjoys that. But as her world expands, you see her experiencing new things, and you know having an opportunity to grow at the same time. The one remaining thing that stays consistent is her relationship with Shang, right? Which it's her grounding. She's the grounding feature for Shang. Shang is able to ground himself in a reality due to Katie being there,
Well, she
right?
kind of saved him, but she doesn't really understand that, right? Because when he came to America, I guess, and went into hiding, and it seems like they became friends not long after that, which is like 10 years ago, right? I guess from the events of the film, the present day events of the film.
Yeah.
I get the impression they both were not snapped and they were just around all that time. Um, but like sometimes I just want the kind of that context about like who just got back and who didn't. Like at that dinner that breakfast they were at with like the grandma. Was she around for the last 5 years or not? But I guess it doesn't matter. But okay, let's talk about like the whole opening of the film, because we
And
talked
we
about
also have to talk about the timeline too, because
yeah,
I
we
was
got to talk about the
confused.
timeline, but let's talk about okay, thousands of years ago. Speaking of time, we start off and we get this whole background on the Mandarin as Wenwu, as played by Tony Leung, who I thought was fantastic in this film. I was watching this whole movie and going like, "Who is this guy? I know this guy. I knew him from Hero, but he had some facial hair in that movie, so I didn't quite." And
He
he
is a
was 20.
legend. He's a
He's a
legend.
legend, but I'm not as much of a martial arts movie
No, not
fan
the
as like.
martial arts, like Hong Kong cinema and Chinese cinema. He's a legend.
Right, and this was all in Mandarin, right? They were always speaking Mandarin Chinese, as far as everyone
I believe,
understands.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
Cantonese. I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
Because I believe he's Cantonese, he's Hong Kong, right? So he's like a few of them, like also Michelle Yeoh, I believe, are not speaking in their native language.
There's also like with the Mandarin language though, Dave. Like when I went to China, I learned that like the dialect that they speak in Beijing is different than the dialect they speak in Shanghai. There's like a rudimentary like thing that everybody gets taught, but there's like a slang that they speak in Shanghai, for instance. They call it Shanghalese, or and the words are different. And so sometimes, a lot of times, like someone from Beijing will not understand someone from Shanghai, but they can speak the kind of like the generic language, and then they can understand each other. So it's very interesting. Like I don't know a ton about the Chinese language, but I do know a few things. I know how their symbols work, and I understand kind of like how different and how diverse their language is. And so I do wonder, like, are they all speaking the one language where everyone kind of understands? I would imagine so, because it's a movie. But yeah,
I'm curious about that too. But and the whole movie starts off with the narration from Ying Li, who we see here on screen, across from Tony Leung, who is the mother of Shang-Chi and Xialing, along with she's the guardian of Ta Lo, and this whole thing where we get like, who is the Mandarin? He somehow got these rings thousands of years ago. He took great power. He was like a warlord, and then. But somehow he's kind of escaped being like historically documented. He's more of a legend, and kind of controls an underground army of assassins, I guess. He's kind of like a little bit like maybe Ra's al Ghul in some ways. because he has this immortality thing. And so in 96, he's searching for the Ta Lo, this mystical realm, I guess, and to expand his power, he runs into Ying Li, and this whole fight sequence that starts off the movie, like very much like Hero to me, like one of those scenes.
Yep.
With this amazing like forest around them and all the kind of like the slower motion that they do in the fight, how she just defeats him with grace and he's all power and you know, it starts this whole thing off of like, you know, he was evil, but then he like love kind of.
But
I
wait, was he evil?
Well, evil is maybe a harsh word. Well, kind of. He was not
He's-
a good guy.
He's a conqueror.
Conqueror.
Yes.
Yeah.
If conquering is not evil, then I don't know. But
Well, I mean, again, like good and evil is a hard thing to prescribe to a character, like, you know, because again, people are not one note, and the way they portray the father is very important in this movie, because you can see the way the children look at him in a bunch of different occasions, that they're scared of him, but they still love him. There's a lot of great facial acting going on with the father, that like even when he dies, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but both the kids kind of are on the dragon, and they look at his dead body on the ground, and there's sadness, there's sorrow there. You know, they've lost both their parents now, and
they're orphans now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just again, like his performance is so fantastic. Also, with the scene you're talking about, Dave, I got more Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon vibes.
Thank you.
Because
Fair enough. You know, I think there's a lot of influences here.
The elements play a more important role in Crouching Tiger and how they interact with it. The dance, that is the martial arts, is more present there than Hero. Just my opinion. But my gosh, is this scene beautiful out the gate? You're just like, this is gonna be something different altogether.
Yeah,
then
and she was amazing too. Like I want to really give props to Ying Li, who or whoever the character of Ying Li is played by. I'm not quite sure who.
This is why we have Wiki.
I have it. Fala Chen is her name.
Paula Chan, who I don't know if I've ever seen her before. The Dweller in the Darkness, I guess, is also used. But I really like, everybody was so good in this movie. Like just everything from the costuming to the color palette to the sound to the score. I really enjoyed also how this kind of was a cross-cultural movie. You know, it was really jumping between China, America, and how English and Chinese were kind of being intermixed, like between even sentences, like especially at that breakfast scene, which kind of like after we get the whole like flashback and kind of setting up things, and we go to present day with Sean, as and everything he's up to. We see he's doing push-ups, but we don't really know. Like we're kind of learning what's going on here as we're going, right? So.
Well, like, and we can get to the bus scene off that then, Dave. Like, what happens?
So we talked about the breakfast, which I thought was really funny. And then they get their bus. They have to get their bus. And then they get. So that's when he has to jump into like this big fight, right? Because he sees these guys coming for his pendant.
Yeah, and that's when for introduction of Razor Fist, who might be related to Taserface. Who knows?
Really?
No, I don't know.
No.
It's just they both have ridiculous names, and
well, he has a better car though.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
Razor Fist as so he's pretty prominent in that bus scene. Yeah, he doesn't come in until like maybe a little bit partway through because he's kind of chilling back, letting some of the other guys at first. But yeah, they come up to him. There's some good jokes too. Just like I know we're kind of going through quick, but like just like where they see the lady working on her research paper on the bus, and they're, just like stuff like that. And they're just like, wow, you got to work on that. And
Lessons to be learned. Always make sure that if you're going to work from a laptop, make sure that you're working with the cloud so that it automatically saves. Because if that was your only copy, shame on you, dear. Shame on you.
Absolutely. Just about Razor Fist, as played by Florian Munto, a German-Romanian actor, model, former heavyweight boxer. He was known for his. He also played Victor Drago in the new Creed sequel, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't, which I haven't seen either. So I thought he was also like really quite a presence in this movie. I was trying to figure out what that blade was made out of. Was it like vibranium or like something like that? Like I don't even know. I've never heard of Razor Fist per se from the Marvel, but he's
a low end villain for Shang-Chi. So
okay. Yeah. So like just that whole bus sequence. I kept wondering like. I like by the time I was starting to wonder what was going on with this bus driver and why he wasn't stopping the bus, that's exactly when like the brake line got cut and like everything starts really going badly. Of course, it's San Francisco that they're in too, so everything's downhill. It's like they're on a roller coaster. And I've driven in San Francisco. It's interesting going up and down those hills. It's like just the sight lines, even when you're going up, because you've been kind of going up this hill and all of a sudden like there's a person there. Right?
Do you know what I want? Speaking of San Francisco, Dave, is I want Shang-Chi to show up in the new Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, because they're both in San Francisco. And the gags they could do between the two characters, I think, would be really cool and really
right. There's
fun.
Also there's Lawrence Fishburne's character.
Goliath,
because there was apparently talk of having some kind of an Ant-Man crossover in this. I guess they eventually cut it out, probably for time or just pacing, or it would just be too much of a distraction. But yes, they're like having some West Coast maybe Avenger action here is maybe something interesting to consider, because even with Iron Man was always like in the comic books like a New York based guy, but then they suddenly made him Malibu when they did Iron Man 1, right? So there was always sort of like now these heroes are kind of spread out across the country, and how people will cross over in different places is always kind of interesting to think about.
Which is why I think they did the Iron Man with Spider-Man, so that relationship, because in the comics, they're both from New York, and I think
Doctor Strange is in New York, and like having having New York having like a New York scene and maybe a West Coast scene, and even maybe like Chicago in the future. I don't know. Like I find that kind of, or even international, right? Like when you're in China, maybe this is who you're going to see, or as we get to meet more and more characters across the globe. Of course, there's Wakanda and Sokovia and all this. That's what I really enjoy, is like just expanding this world, building upon it. It's becoming like less and less relatable in some ways, because it doesn't really resemble our world. This is a world where everybody on Earth knows that there's aliens. Everybody knows that there's like mystical magics now and gods and all these things. So like
I was more hoping that we would see Jimmy Woo than anything.
Because Jimmy Woo could have showed up too in this, right? Like, but he was busy with the WandaVision stuff up in New Jersey. So
depending on where the timelines kind of interact, which is eventually we'll get to our conversation.
And speaking of timeline, where like I've heard some things from different commentators that this is definitely a post Endgame. It's post snap, like them coming back. As we and spoilers, of course, because we've been having that crust at the bottom the whole time. But like in the post credit scene, Bruce Banner shows up and he's no longer Hulkified. So that's also
what's going on with that, guys? Do you have a theory? I mean, Jaemeel probably knows the truth already.
I don't know, but okay, all right. Real world theory. I think that because he's going to be showing up in She-Hulk, there needs to be him being able to transform back and forth, because Jennifer is going to have that same ability. So I think that's why they kind of had to do it. Next is, okay, well, he was able to combine himself with the Hulk, Bruce and the Hulk, into one entity. What would cause him to separate or have a situation where he would be able to go back and forth? And of course, dealing with the trauma of the snap would make perfect sense. That he would have that.
Nearly killed him.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, during the funeral for Tony in Endgame, wasn't he Bruce Banner then?
No, he's still Hulk through it to the end of that.
Oh, okay, but he still had his arm in a sling.
Yes. Yeah, he had his arm in a sling, which we see also here. So it's sometime after the funeral. Some people are saying this is happening around the same time that Falcon and the Winter Soldier is happening, maybe, perhaps. So it's been like a couple of months, maybe, since everyone's come back. Things have kind of settled down a little bit.
There's also, theories, who knows? Like maybe he's from a different multiverse, and like there's so many things they can do now with what's going on with the Doctor Strange No Way Home stuff that's going to be happening coming up when that movie comes out. So yeah, like who knows? Like and I'm excited just to find out.
Right. Just back to the movie though. In terms of like the timing. So once this bus scene happens, and I was like, oh my god, like, Katie, you gotta like drive that not down the next hill. You gotta like take a corner and like get the momentum to slow you down as you go down like a flat street. But
well, she's being directed by Shang-Chi a bunch in this movie where like during that scene where he's like, go right when I tell you. And then like, and he's like doing all this great martial arts stuff where he's like constantly doing the Matrix thing where he's missing swords and he's, it's just fantastic. The way it's shot is really, really good.
Yeah. Right. Which makes like sense that Bill Pope's here because like it's high speed chases and martial arts. You think of like the Matrix Revolutions with that highway scene and all of that action and like all the different, fights as well. So like I thought that was great. And right from the moment like that once that scene ends and she's kind of like, who are you? What's happening? He's like, I gotta go. I have to save my sister. And she's like, well, I'm coming with you. And she's on this adventure from that moment on. Like she never looks back.
Yeah.
She never looked back once. Like she was just, I guess this is cool. I'm going to pursue this too.
Yeah, she never seems like
afraid.
I guess if there is a criticism of this movie it is that moment kind of with her when they get to Ta Lo and like, I mean, they
even
show
before
her
that, when right from the moment she goes to Macau.
Right. Yeah. We'll get to the Macau stuff, but yeah, like, yeah, she's never like, okay, you know what? This is too intense for me. Like it would have made sense, I think, if she had that moment.
But doesn't it make sense in a world where half the world population disappeared? You're seeing on TV like gods and aliens fighting and attacking. Spider-Man, giant, like they're in San Francisco, so it's like, oh, down the street, did you see this 20-foot dude or this 5-story dude just pop out of the shore, the harbor,
out of the bay,
right? Even at the scene where the final sequence where Wong shows up, right? It's like with the sling ring, like people don't go, oh my god. They're like, there's a level of acceptance that everyone has, right? And it seems that
they're a little desensitized to it.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, what was she really astounded at? Like, Macau was an example where she's just staring out and just marveling like everything happening. But even then, she's taking it with stride, and I think that's the character. And like, to me, it isn't necessarily a criticism. They kind of established that she is so, I don't want to say well adjusted, but
she's a thrill seeker. The first time we meet her, she's driving the car, super fast throughout the streets of San Francisco. But there's the moment where she's hanging onto the bamboo in Macau and she falls, and the Shang-Chi's sister, what's her name? So
Xialing.
Xialing.
I thought it was Xialing.
Yeah, Xialing.
And just on her, so we get to meet her in this eventually in this Macau nightclub. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the whole Abomination and Wong. Well, Wong has a bigger role in this movie, but this is where we first, like, it seems like just a quick cameo. We're at this like Macau fight club, like Abomination and Wong having a battle here. And we see some other like those fights in like those smaller booths as well. We say like a sumo guy like throwing like a small martial artist or whatever, like through like against the glass and different fights. Abomination. What is Tim Roth back for this?
Yeah,
like,
he did the voice.
He did it.
Yep.
And he's going to be in She-Hulk.
He's going to be in She-Hulk. So okay. So we haven't seen him since the Incredible Hulk, right? Which was in 2008.
Yep.
Which is 13 years ago.
Yeah, and he was referenced. He was referenced in
Avengers.
Was it Avengers? Yeah, he was referenced in Avengers. Agent Coulson did mention that he was in Alaska, I think.
Yeah, like I kind of cool. I love the way that Wong beats him by creating the portal, so he punched himself in the face.
Yeah, that's cool.
But then it's also like, well, but hey, we're buddies now. So Abomination is not a villain anymore after he tried to destroy Harlem. And
Once again, villains and heroes, the kind of
gray area.
Gray area.
And
Because technically, Blonsky wasn't necessarily a villain, right? He was tasked with a specific job, and he went overboard, and he was fighting the Hulk in Harlem, right?
He was on loan from the British Marines or whatever to the U.S. government for some reason.
Yeah,
if we recall. Yeah, and so but he also and there was. I don't know. It's been so long since I've thought about the Incredible Hulk. But anyway, so Abomination in there and the whole Fight Club, and they're like, well, yeah, but you are a busboy. You are like famous. Like he's showing it here on like on the phone. It kind of reminded me of Zack and Miri. Like, oh, your granny panties. You know?
Granny panties, yeah.
Right. But we meet the sister. She shows up in this scene because she ends up being the opponent, and she's pissed that he ran away and never came back for her. What did you guys think of her as a character in this movie, like in the relationship between them?
I think her main theme is that, like, you know, based on her father, like, she was kind of always put in a box until you're never going to be worthy of the 10 rings. You're never going to be worthy of leading, you know, so you go into your room and practice by yourself and basically learn by example, by watching, by not by doing. A lot of women empowerment themes going on here, but done well. I thought for sure done well.
Girls are getting it done.
Yeah.
Did
you find her compelling?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, I did as well. It's always so easy, especially in modern Hollywood, to make her seem like a harpy, I should say. Like, I was done wrong, and it's like, I got to do things myself, and, you know, I'm better than a man kind of thing. And she's trying to find her morsel of respect, find her footing. At the same time, it like, yes, she would be mad at Shang, but she's not. Once again, the ties of family are supersede a lot of things, right? She came back, right? Just like how, yes, the children might be odds with their father, but it's not like they don't care about him, right? And won't try to save him, right? So you see this theme consistently from the get-go. So when you check out people's motivations, you're like, I understand why she would initially disappear in that elevator, but I also understand why she would return outside.
Yeah. And on that, and so like she kicks his ass in the ring. I love how Aquafina there is Katie's like, she's like, she has all the money, and he's like, did you bet against me? She's like, no. That was funny. And then they figure out that like he's like, I came because you're in danger, but she was not the one who sent this postcard with the dragon on it that he believed was like this warning from her. It was actually just this ruse from their father, who was, you know, using it to sort of like, take them back so that he could explain this whole thing to get their mother back and everything else.
Use Google Maps, like, to see what the place looks like.
No,
like you have an address.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, look, I'm just spitballing here. All right, see if you guys step in. Once you Google Map it, it's like, okay, it's this building. It looks kind of abandoned. I would immediately go, right, and if I'm truly desperate, go and see if there's any business nearby to it, right? Call them and ask them about the place, right?
Comment here from Sam. He goes, I feel like a lot of movies made for younger audiences have female main characters as of now. Well, I think they always have, but I think it's definitely more prominent now, and there's been more of a deliberate effort to increase the visibility, like the amount of agency in the story that certain female main characters have, and supporting characters as well, you know, and I think that's a good thing.
If this was made, okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was just going to say real quick that I like that we're not in a world of disbelief with these female characters. Like Katie is who she is. She's Katie, and you understand her limitations and her assets. Same thing with Xia Lang. You know, you understand that she's really good with the rope with the spike on the end of it, and she's amazing at like skill.
And Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, and she could take down her brother, but her brother kind of let her. You know, like there's a bunch of things like that I think, again, realistic makes sense. Everyone can understand. But she's also vulnerable, Xia Lang. Like her dad takes down both of them very easily.
Right.
You know,
she's been traumatized herself too. She's carrying this pain and
yes.
You know, and she explains that like our father could never look at us because I reminded him of our dead mother, and
yes, stuff like this.
Right,
like,
I wasn't allowed to train. I was because only boys were allowed to be assassins in the Ten Rings.
Yes, there's a vulnerability because she's a female character, and I like that. I understand, like it makes sense, and that's my take on her. I liked the way they approached her character.
If this movie was made, let's say 30 years ago, she would not have, like, unless she's Cynthia Radrock, she's not having the amount of interaction and agency as we saw in this film at all.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
Yep.
Right.
Right. And then the whole sequence when they well, she leaves them for dead, right? She takes off in that elevator, and then they have to go out the window, and you know, and Katie's like, I don't want to go out there, like, you know, and it had all that bamboo scaffolding, which I didn't know. I didn't know that's something they do in that part of the world, but I guess they do. And so, like, because it took me a while to figure out. I knew they were on scaffolding, but I didn't understand its, I guess, fragility.
Bamboo's stronger than steel, apparently. Like it's an extremely strong thing.
Right. But as like certain things, boards were breaking and certain things, like ropes were snapping. It seemed to be like the whole thing was like coming apart quite a bit. It was a really fun, entertaining action sequence. We also had Mask Man,
Masked Assassin Ninjas, dude.
The Masked Assassin Ninjas. But there was like the main, like the guy who had been like his like main trainer guy.
The guy who beat Shang-Chi, yeah.
I think it was called John or something like that.
He has a name. It's like Spirit something. Hold on.
Death Dealer? Is that his name?
Death Dealer thing.
Yeah. Death Dealer, yeah. Who's kind of in this scene a bit. See if I can get a photo of him while we're... Yeah, here he is. Because we're getting like a lot of like because you know, Shang's been explaining his origins, how he came to know all of these moves and whatever, and the different there he is, and we see him a lot in those flashbacks as like when they're on the plane. And so, you know, and there's actually like at the end of this sequence, Shang goes to like kill him. Right, because he's like,
but no, he thinks about it. He does think about it before he does.
He was doing it. He was going to do it.
Right, but there's a moment where he's like, "Okay, I'm going to do this." Like almost like he'd made a vow that he's not going to kill anybody anymore, and that's why he went to San Francisco in the first place and went into hiding.
Why he ran away? Why he never came home? Right. Or whatever, you know. And then, but he was like, "No, I'm going to make an exception for you." And then he's like, but then he gets stopped before he really can.
But that sequence where they're fighting and it's kind of lit behind them and you kind of see the shadow, that was very Skyfall Skyfall sequence. It was and the level of a choreography in that fight sequence was just superb. I really enjoyed that sequence, and I kind of wish it was a little bit longer. But you know, beggars can't be choosers. Just the knife movement and the tracking with the knives. One thing with martial arts action, especially with North American interpretations, is sometimes they're like, speed is great. And speed is great, but if you can't see what they're doing, then it's absolutely worthless. And they were able to present both speed and also be able to see the moves clearly. And that is something extremely hard to do. And they did a great job with it.
I agree, 100%. Jaemeel, because a lot of times in these kung fu action movies, I do get lost in the way they shoot it. But did you guys notice like how much every time there was martial arts going on, they really zoomed into the characters, and they really, like, again, like you just said, Jaemeel, they showed the moves, like, and they made a point of doing that. I don't know how they did that. They must have slowed down the frame rate and then sped it up in a different way to make you like see the move and then see the counter move, but it happens in like 1 second.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they did that, but it was amazing.
An example of doing it wrong, in my opinion, is the Bourne series, where you just see movement, but you don't see what's happening. And then at the end, Bourne is successful. And you're like, oh, I guess he won.
I really remember hating Batman Begins as well because of the
Yeah.
way the action was edited in that movie. And you couldn't tell what was going on ever. And it was just like, ugh.
Someone was getting hit.
Someone's getting hit, I guess, wearing black.
Yeah.
I guess. So, how many of these masked assassins die in this whole scaffold fight? Like, how many of them fall off the building? I lost count. It was at least 6.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Because he's like boom, 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 and like they, like he kept falling off, but he would like fall to a lower level. But you hear like and there was like a lot of these 10 Rings guys are just like foot soldiers who just get like they're just going one after the other. More like the cartoon foot soldiers who were just completely expendable. But then at the end of that fight, Mr. Tony Leung shows up, and we get the Mandarin comes into the story.
You keep calling him the Mandarin.
Yeah, he didn't like that. You don't name him after a Chinese food dish
or an orange. Wait, okay, what do we call him? Wenwu?
Yeah, you could call him Wenwu.
That's he does say that is his original name.
Only his wife called him that, though. I think he'd get mad if he gets mad whatever you call him, unless you call him like Warlord or whatever.
You'll never see me coming.
Yeah.
I got we're gonna have a lot of discussions at the end of this podcast because I have a lot of things I want to.
You don't want to say on the air?
No. Like on the air, just like, man, I kind of wish ... kind of things.
Oh, fair enough. No.
Right. So the whole like, after this he brings them like in his helicopter back to like where they grew up, kind of in the back in the compound. They're being like brought back here for the first time, and Katie's along for the ride too. And like he's trying to like sort of win them back, right? Like he's like, I've missed you. There is this connection. You realize he's not like that. The fear his children have of him is justified, but yet they still have this connection, and they that loyalty to family versus sort of knowing, I don't know, this is probably not the path I want to go on, and it's also because he's telling them this fantastic story that your mother is still alive and we can save her together, and I've given you your space. Now is the time to come together and for you to grow up. To mostly to Shang, more or less. He doesn't engage much with his daughter, really.
Well, okay, so I guess I'll bring this up. I feel like the kids became 2 different parts of their mother.
Yeah.
So for Xialing, for Wenwu, it's like he wants to protect her and keep her secluded and protected at all times. Whereas with Shang, it's like he's also angry at the situation and with what happened with her, and he's kind of punishing him at the same time as training him so that he could never be killed. So it's like he split how he feels about his departed wife into 2 pieces: the wanting to protect them, but also wanting to never have them be defeated, and like he just kind of splits them apart, and that's how I interpret their relationship at that point.
It's interesting here, too, with a quote from Tony Leung himself, who plays the character of Wenwu. He says, he's a man with a history who craves to be loved, but also describing him as a sociopath, a narcissist, and a bigot.
Well, I think it's interesting that you brought up the 2 parts thing here, Jaemeel, because I do think the crux of how he feels about Shang-Chi is what he says to him, where it's like, you stood at the window and watched, when he says that to him. And it's like, dude, he was like 3 or 4 years old.
He was like 6 or 7 or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever he was. Like he was way too young to be able to take on a mob of murderous mobsters. like
The Iron
literally
Gang.
the Iron Gang,
Yeah.
and it's just like unrealistic. Like, and then Shang-Chi says to him at one point at the end of the movie too, like, our mother was gone, we needed you, and you chose those damn rings over us. And again, like you get an understanding of how both characters feel about each other, and all because of this pivotal moment where I think again, the mother would be ashamed of especially the husband of what he did after she died, like the fact that he let grief take over his life and his motivations. Like,
But it's an old story. We've heard this. Like, we know that this happens even in real life when there's this
Yes.
kind of loss in families, and so it feels very real. Like it just feels like, I can see like people are not perfect. People fall maybe sort of into their tropes of like, their things that these character flaws they can't seem to break from. And like he was on this path through redemption, Wenwu, through his love for Ying Li, but it's the tragedy broke him, and it sent him down the wrong path, down the misguided path.
If he did not choose the rings over his family, do you think he would have been allowed to enter Ta Lo?
Yeah, it seemed like no. It seemed like Ta Lo was never going to like wipe that stain from his record, I guess, for like 1,000 years of being a warlord. I guess, they were not so thrilled with the idea of him joining up with Ta Lo.
Well, what did they say to him? I forget exactly what they say to him when, they
He's
do
not worthy.
give him, he's not worthy. Yeah. And I do think that's again a part, maybe he would have been worthy had he chosen his kids over the rings and chosen love over grief. And like these are, again, there's a lot of the same themes that we get in WandaVision.
Yep.
A lot of the exact same themes of grief taking over and clouding your judgment, and not caring about the people around you, the bystanders, literally.
Actually, and speaking of WandaVision, I also did feel like there was a bit of a connection here, because we also see with the 10 rings and like the color that kind of associates those 10 rings, because when it's Wenwu, also known as the Mandarin, maybe not.
Putting that in.
I just want to get it in there. When he has it has almost like this purplish bluish color, right? But later on, when Shang-Chi takes the rings, they becomes this golden kind of looking energy. And I kind of thought about Agatha Harkness, who kind of had, when she was sucking that magic out of like the other witches in WandaVision, and some of even how Scarlet Witch's energy is more reddish gold. I don't know. I thought maybe there's a connection here. Maybe there's some kind of like,
it isn't Agatha's mother and all the witches. Their energy is blue when they're trying to kill Agatha, and then it's purple when she
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a connection here or not, but it's all Marvel, so it made me wonder. Jaemeel, any thought?
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not disregarding any person's theory. That's not necessarily one I subscribe to, but it is an interesting theory.
Yeah. So after he breaks this whole thing down, and he wanted the 2 pendants from the kids so he could put the eyes of the tiger so he could show them this whole thing, and this is how we're gonna get back into Ta Lo. He kind of explains the whole background, how he was forbidden from entering, that his mother was trying to advocate to bring the whole family, because that was kind of where she wanted them to go, I guess, live out their days, and not so much on Earth, I guess. But it was all, she died before that ever happened, or could it, that could be figured out. But so they decide they want to escape. They decide they want to warn Ta Lo, or they want to try to do something. So that's where they're down in like the dungeon, while like their dad's like, well, you'll come around eventually. To my way of thinking, or you won't, and I'll just leave you down here. And so that's when they run into Trevor Slattery, as played by Ben Kingsley,
yes,
who comes into the. Well, I have this photo of him as he had appeared in Iron Man 3, because he was the original Mandarin, or so we thought that. But then it was maybe Guy Pierce,
Guy
sort
Pearce
of
is
his character from that movie.
yeah.
But he's back, and when we saw him, all hail the king in the
Hail
I don't
to
know
the
if you
King.
guess
I think
I
it's
all
watched that
hail to
last
the
night
king.
actually. Yeah, that was really funny. That was really
Yeah.
really funny.
Right, and that gives the backstory of how Trevor Slattery ended up down there in the in Wenwu's dungeon. I guess they were like, no, because he had been like saying he was the leader of the Ten Rings, and he was like this great villain, but it was never him. So Wenwu wanted to execute him in grand style, but apparently he started busting into Macbeth, and he became like the court jester to the warrior king, I guess, and which was it kept him going. We also had the what was it? Morris was was like the cute thing.
the turkey with no face.
The turkey chicken pig thing
With wings, yeah.
yeah, which was great. So his I really love this character. Like, from Liverpool, I'm Trevor Slattery, and he has some amazing comedy in this movie and lines. And Jeff, you were mentioning last night that definitely like Aquafina and Katie, she has a lot of the comedy early, but then it suddenly like he takes over the main comedic role after this point, because this is kind of the beginning of her path to becoming her own badass, I guess, becoming
She's kind of like a hawk girl,
right.
She's got that bow and arrow, and she has the crucial moment when she shoots the big evil dragon.
Right. She's also like the driver throughout that whole sequence where they're going through the forest to get into Ta Lo, where he's like, take a right up here or the forest will eat us. And he's so
you're
calm.
in the pocket. What do you mean in the pocket?
Stay in the pocket.
He's like, Morris says you should go right in 3, 2, 1 now. It's like it's Morris, so you better speed up. Morris says you better speed up.
Yeah, I was almost like he was so calm about the whole thing. He also has like that whole line where he's talking about like, when I was a boy, my mother took me to Planet of the Apes. And I said, how could those monkeys do that? Like,
that's when I knew I wanted to be an actor.
It's acting. It's acting.
We're acting.
Those monkeys can do that. Oh my god, such a funny, like, just so. He was so funny in this movie, and just the accent that's not his actual accent, right?
No.
Like,
no,
Ben Kingsley.
I think he's from like southern England. I don't think he's from the north. I don't know.
But he does this Liverpool accent. He basically he's like a Beatle. It just like never has a care in the world. Just likes to enjoy life, right? Even when he was about to be executed every moment, he just kind of lives moment to moment, which I really enjoy about his energy. And so they eventually, through Morris, they get into Ta Lo, which they immediately see like the Firebirds, and they kind of figure out they're kind of in like an otherworldly place, like this other. I compared it to like Asgard and things like that. Just Kung Lung.
Yep.
But that's Iron Fist, and that was no good.
It's okay. Okay, keep going. We'll get into this.
I was wrong. He is from the north. He's from Dave. He's from Yorkshire. He's from Scarborough.
Oh, so he's like from where Benny's from.
Yeah, he's from the same province. Yeah, I think
Yorkshire.
Isn't Benny from York originally?
Well, he's from Leeds, which is also in Yorkshire.
Oh, he's from Leeds. Okay, so yeah, Scarborough is like a coastal city on the other side, so not like on the other side of where Liverpool is. So it's on the east coast, whereas Liverpool's on the west coast.
More near Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both from the north, which is, I guess, maybe that's why he was able to do it, because he grew up around a lot of in that area, so kind of had those accents in his head.
Did the world actor anyway? But absolutely, did the world of Ta Lo live up to the expectations for you guys? Because I don't know what I didn't really have any expectations. I didn't know what to imagine when we got in here. But it was mostly with those animal life. Like there was like these big lion things, like dragon lions. Like they look like the more ornate, mythical beasts of like Chinese history, right? Like, and so like to see those real life. I thought that the effects were amazing. Like CGI in modern day is so amazing, and sometimes when I see those kinds of creatures, I go, wow! Like you never know.
I got a lot. All right, I've been to that like a similar kind of part of China that this looks like, which is Guilin, and then we went on the river, and it just a lot of I got a lot of the same feelings that I had when we were on that river cruise in Guilin, China, which is in the south. It had a lot of that feel to me because it's kind of like their wilderness area, kind of like their BC, Alberta, Lake Louise kind of place, and it's just gorgeous. And I got a lot of those same vibes from Ta Lo and I think again it's on their money, like they're really proud of that kind of area. Because it is gorgeous. I mean, we kind of saw it in Survivor China when they went there. Like you kind of saw what I'm talking about. Like,
yeah, so you can see like sort of like there's that statue there, and then like you can kind of see the creature. I don't know what they're called, but they were.
It's amazing. Like a dragon dog or something. I don't know what
dragon lion or something.
Yeah,
they just I don't know if you're like an animal person or anything like that. I just thought it was really like they're neat. Just kind of like the world building effect of it felt so different. And then we also meet Michelle Yeoh's character. She's the aunt of and the sister of Yin Li, Ying Nan. What did you guys think of her in this movie? I'll get a photo of her.
Chef's kiss. I love Michelle Yeoh. She's awesome. In almost anything that she's in. I have really yet to see something that I don't like from her, or at least say that she's the best part of something that's horrible. She is just utterly fantastic in how she plays, and I kind of wish that she is in more stuff. And now seeing her kind of like introduced to North American audiences who haven't met her in previous things like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You're seeing her in a lot of other fandoms. Like we just got her in Star Trek for a cup of coffee, and now Star Wars individuals are gonna see the amazingness of her, and the countless movies that she's done throughout the years and everything. She's just fantastic.
I really like her when she plays a good guy. I don't like her so much when she plays a bad guy, quite frankly. Like in Star Trek, which we have a whole channel dedicated to Star Trek called Live Long and Podcast, if you don't know. And we talk about all on Discovery. Like I really loved her in the beginning of Discovery when she was playing like the Captain Georgiou from the Prime universe. But she largely plays her mirror universe counterpart, which is like this more like sort of anti-hero villain, character, which is fun for her, and she does it fine. But when she was back in this role tonight, in this movie last night, in this, I guess, more heroic role, I was just like, I'm really into it. Like, I really dig it. I want to root for her, I guess, instead of root against her. Maybe that's where it comes from. Jeff?
Yeah, no, I love Michelle Yeoh. Good or bad. I mean, like, I get what you're saying, Dave. Like, Georgiou got a little tiresome in Discovery, but that wasn't her fault. That was the writing, in my opinion.
Yeah. It wasn't her. It wasn't her performance. It was just that the way they wrote her was just a bit. It was. It was. They tried, but it just. And to me, it never really worked. And now they're still talking about this spin-off with her for Star Trek, whether she'll continue to play that same version in some kind of Section 31 show or something.
Have her on Picard.
Get her on Picard, maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay, Dave, are you able to share my screen? Because I kind of want to show you the people what I was talking about here with Guilin. This is the river cruise that I kind of took here, and just look at the natural beauty of this area of the world. I mean, it is really just when you're there, it's really breathtaking.
Right, it looks exactly like it. So this is where they filmed it.
I don't know if it's where they filmed it, but it definitely and they have these caves there, and they light them up like this, and it's just you got these hills that look like this, and it's kind of like I think the forest was kind of inspired by this too. So, and a lot of people don't know this about China, I think, is some of the natural beauty that is there.
Well, I think that's the other thing too. What I really enjoyed about this movie was sort of like how much it was both cultures. I kind of talked about this, how it was like it was this real fusion between American and Chinese. And like Jeff and I were also saying last night, Jaemeel, that like this movie's got to be like one of the biggest movies of all time because it's going to be popular in the two biggest movie markets in the world.
We'll see.
If it wasn't for COVID, I think like I was just thinking about that today. I was just like, well, they're not getting packed houses. Are they gonna? How much repeat viewing are they gonna get? Like they got with like Dark Knight and Endgame and some of the biggest grossing movies of all time. I think in China, worldwide, I could see it becoming number one. I could, but we'll see.
We'll see how well it does in China. There's a lot of pushback.
Well, okay, and is some of the pushback based off the actors, Jaemeel? Because, like, for instance, Michelle Yeoh is, I believe she's Malaysian. Like, is that like, and I know like the Chinese have a thing where it's like they want Chinese actors, and is that?
They like Michelle Yeoh, and
Do they?
Tony
Okay.
is a legend.
Right.
A lot of people did not like the lead, stating that he did not look traditionally handsome.
Interesting. Yeah.
which was extremely weird. I guess it's weird from our Western perspectives.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Michael Chan talked about that too, right? How like sometimes like he even I guess amongst the Asian community, there's different opinions on. I don't fully understand it. I just understand that there's
Well, they have different beauty standards.
opinions on who looks good or who
Yeah.
looks like what or whatever.
because
Yeah.
from my perspective, I'm like, dude's a really good, handsome looking dude, but
Yeah. No, yeah,
Like-
I feel the same way, Jabil. Like it's they have different beauty standards, and they look for like if there's flaws like in their skin and stuff, like they don't like stuff like that. Like it's you know, but like for us that's more handsome and rugged.
Is Tony Leung more traditional handsome?
people love him. He's a legend. He is a legend. He is Scorsese. He is
like Robert De Niro. He's like
De Niro, yeah,
yeah.
Right.
more or less.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just said, like one of his most popular films was remade, and unfortunately, North American audiences only think of the remake and not the original. And that's Infernal Affairs, which Scorsese remade into what was it called? The one with Leo, Matt Damon,
Departed.
The
Departed. The Departed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was he was born in Harbin, China, and came to Canada at the age of 5. Shout out to Aaron Mills, Mississauga, where he grew up.
Nearby to where I what did
Not far from you, Jaemeel.
Yep.
You know, and he, you know, I don't know, he got into acting. He was in Nikita and then Beauty and the Beast, apparently, and did some other. He was in a stunt. He's been a stuntman as well for a long time. I thought he was like great, amazing in this movie. Like, and the pairing with him and Awkwafina, great too. And just to keep going through the plot of the movie, so once they get to Ta Lo, and then there's this whole period where they're training. They're kind of learning about the Dweller in the darkness and not enough training. This could have been longer, eh? Like that they were like
so, as I kind of alluded to before, having spent a lot of time watching martial arts movies with my dad. My dad likes a specific type of martial arts movie, and I'll break it down very quickly. First part, we're introduced to the hero, and there is balance in the world, and then villain is introduced. Villain beats the hero, and the hero, a hero dies, and their son, child, or brother or something is exiled. That exiled individual is low in his luck. He has his fortunes changed, introduced to his teacher. His teacher then trains him how to become a better fighter.
Like in Rocky IV.
Like Rocky IV. And then the returning hero comes back, fights the villain, wins, right? But the main crux of the movie is the training sequence, right? If there is no training sequence, my dad is disappointed, right? That's why he likes a lot of the Rocky movies too, because it follows that same kind of sequence. So there wasn't
like I liked this, but I tend to agree. Like it seems like they were there for about 2 weeks, or like the whole story takes over, because they kind of say that once they get back with their friend at the bar at the end. Oh, well, that's what our last 2 weeks have been like. The world almost ended. So
it takes 3 days to get. Like, how long is it going to take to get to Macau to begin with? Right.
They would have to have that would have taken like 2 days alone, probably, just to get there, with the amount of flights they would have to do and things like that, and time changes and everything else. But so it was a little fast for me. It was not even just about Shang-Chi's training. It was also about
Katie's
training as an archer. They're like, you're gonna do the bow and arrow and learn to
So
do this.
one line would have fixed all of that. Time moves differently in this heavenly realm, right? One day equals a week. Problem solved, right?
Yeah.
You could at least say with intense training for 2 weeks, you can shoot a bow, one bow at a time, right? Not like, like Hawkeye, one bow at a time with a decent amount of accuracy if you're training just purely for 2 weeks, right? Not saying that
Right.
she's going to do like, she does one and she gets it right, and then she quickly gets another one, right?
Watch out, Hawkeye.
We only see her shoot like she only has one loaded, right? That's
She
it.
was just happy to be carrying the arrows at one point.
Yeah. So
I'm carrying the arrows around. That's my job.
to me, that would have fixed it. Even if you say one day is 2 weeks, and we just say that it was a month that she was training.
Right, like it didn't really matter, right? They could have made this as long as they wanted to, but they chose to keep it somewhat, like, because I guess they're like, no, he's coming, so there's some urgency, I think, as well, as they were going for, like that we don't have a lot of time to prepare, which I guess makes it a little bit more dire, maybe.
I don't know, like 2 weeks is still a short period of time before an army comes and invades.
I have the opposite opinion, like of you, Dave, on this one, because I think part of the reason why it's great when she does get that blow with the arrow is the fact that she is not good at it and that she's just learning. Like she's just, I think, and all the jokes, like with what's the guy, the training guy that's a legend too, Jaemeel, you probably know.
No, I don't actually. I was like, who is he?
Wang Bo or whatever. I forget his name. Here, I'll find it.
Chancellor Hui, is that his name?
Yeah, a Master Guang Bo by Hua Wen. It plays him. And he's been in Kung Fu Hustle, Fist of Fury.
Guangbo, Master Guangbo. Okay.
Yeah, all the jokes with him don't land if Awkwafina is suddenly this hot girl, just with the bow and arrow and like, you know what I mean? Like, so I liked that they kind of still kept her an amateur, again, more realistic. Not, you can't have one montage,
and she is our proxy. Like I said, we don't want her to be like all of a sudden like she is now Hawkeye.
Yeah,
but she can have an important role in the story and can be the one who helps save the day.
It only takes one shot, and that's why they show her when she's training. She gets that one shot, and she like goes, "Yeah, like isn't that awesome?" They all kind of look at her, like roll their eyes or whatever, right? And I don't know, I liked all that stuff.
My favorite line too, which I think sums up her arc in the story, is like, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing.
Yeah,
right. So it's like Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
Well, you need to be where the puck's gonna be.
Right. You need to be where the Mandarin's going to be, which is a Ta Lo, when he comes to burn the whole place down.
Right. Yeah, she could have chickened out. She could have not gone along for this ride and not risked her life and went back to doing valet, car driving and all that kind of stuff. But I think she understood that her mom is right, that, she does need to take a risk. Because exactly what you just said. Like you're not going to be able to take that risk unless you're there. Put
yourself out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes. Yeah, I did really enjoy that part of the aspect of it. I thought that like what Michelle Yeoh explained the whole backstory of like the demons and the thing that they had put. Basically, it's like there was like these demons from hell or from a different dimension. They explain it that they came into the Ta Lo dimension, which is separate from our dimension somehow. There's a gateway on Earth, right? You can only pass once a year.
I say it's a heavenly city.
It's a heavenly city.
One of the 7 heavenly cities.
Perhaps it is. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but it's definitely They talk about these evil darkness, soul-eating monsters came. They destroyed our world because once Ta Lo was covered in the most advanced cities and had like a really thriving culture, and it was nearly completely destroyed. That's why there's only like this one village left. Like they're kind of like the remnants of that now almost dead society in some ways, right? And they're like, our job is just to make sure that this never. They're like the watchers on the wall. Like, in Game of Thrones, right? Like waiting for the White Walkers to maybe come back one day. And that's kind of what this whole thing is like. The Mandarin or Wenwu, he's being like tempted by the devil, effectively, right? Like using the voice of his wife. That's because he believes that she's been locked behind there, and that she's actually still alive, and that's what his motivation is, and why he's so driven to do so. And he has this incredibly loyal, devout army of assassins at his beck and as well, who are willing to do whatever he wants, right? So the whole, like, when they finally do show up and the whole confrontation begins, and they're fighting them, and like we get the fight between Shang-Chi and his father. I love how the father went to like the temple and like prayed at like the
Paid respects
to the for the box, what do you call that,
Memorial.
the memorial,
Yes.
the mausoleum, right? In the mausoleum.
Yeah.
Like it was, I don't know, everything was like, I was always like just engaged with the whole thing, like how they're fighting each other, and then eventually how they have to decide, like they have to work together, because eventually when Wenwu starts pounding on the gates after he not to mention he like knocked his son right, he knocked his son right into the water.
He yeeted his son, man.
Yeah, he's like, she would hate what you become. He's like, oh yeah, you boom, right? And he was not happy with Shang-Chi too much in that moment, and left him for dead effectively, right? But that's when he meets the dragon down in the water,
The Great Protector.
Yeah, which was like, he's a dragon rider too, another Game of Thrones kind of thing, he's like the Jon Snow of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
There's a lot of parallels to Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Positive parallels.
Yeah.
Positive ones. And so I like when a couple of those like demon things come out, the soul suckers, and they get Death Dealer, and a couple of the others, and then
Razor Fist is like, we should work together.
We shall work together. Ceasefire. Release them. We are all good. I thought that was a really good message, like also too, about how like war is stupid, and you're often on the same side when you don't realize it. And like the whole final third act battle that comes out of like in the dragon and eventually the monster. Well, there's the whole fight between the Mandarin and Shang-Chi, where he's like eventually taking those rings from him, right?
Yeah.
And like in game, first he gets 5 of those rings, and then eventually he gets all 10. And this is right when the big monster thing pops out, and he sacrifices himself so that it's like, so Shang-Chi can get away. So he has sort of this redemption here at the end, even though it's like, and there's also like this whole coming of age thing for Shang-Chi to stand up to his father and defeat his father and take that power from him and earn his respect as well.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty
Son
fun.
supplants the father.
Yeah. Even that whole effect, that monster, oh my god, that monster was so scary. Like I thought it was like just so like hideous and grotesque.
Great character design, I find.
Just like the mouth of it looked like a real thing, like it's real, like it looked like the devil, and I was just like, whoa, you got to beat this thing, Shang-Chi. Come on.
Did you yell at the screen? You gotta beat it, Shang-Chi.
You gotta go. You gotta do it. Ride that dragon. Come on, swing those rings. Come on, whatever you gotta do. Get Jia Ling in here with her her lasso thing, and let's take this thing down, because we see that like she's able to ride the dragon too, because she also has great power, but
she's Daenerys Targaryen.
She's Daenerys, yeah. Another one. I also like how Trevor Slattery's like, I'm just plain dead. This is another performance. I'm not.
That was my favorite joke in the movie, other than the Planet of the Apes one. Those two jokes were the best for me. And then Morris... and Morris did, and our dog named Morris does that exact thing. So it's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two moments, Dave. I don't know if you noticed this, but in the movie theater, got the biggest laughs, I thought.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everything with Ben Kingsley was killing in that theater last night. Yeah, but also Awkwafina too. She was great. She had some of the best jokes as well. Yeah, and so like there's this whole thing where you think he's gonna be able to suck the soul out of the dragon, out of the Great Protector, and you're like, no, don't kill that dragon. No, they're like, it's gonna become unstoppable. Master Guangbo, I think, he gets his soul sucked out, and then it's up, because he was the one gonna take the shot at the neck, and then he gets taken out. So it's up to Katie to do it. And she does it. She has that great moment, right? Like with all of it, they hit it in the throat, and then Shang-Chi takes the rings and he I don't know, makes it explode basically. Like he destroys it for all time, which was something they could.
That move, boom. I love it. Yeah, that was awesome.
Right, because that was something they couldn't do. I guess like I don't know how, like thousands of years ago, whenever they sealed that thing inside, right? They couldn't kill it. They had to like just
get it. Never had the rings.
They didn't have the rings. Yeah. The Mandarin, what's his name? Real name? I don't know. Wenwu wasn't there, and yeah. So the thing is, and we do learn, and we'll get to the post credits, but we learn that these rings are not from our realm, Earth. They're thousands of years old. I think I have a theory. They're connected to the Eternals. That's my theory, but
it might be in the comic books, right? They're like an alien technology. Right?
Yeah.
Are they? I thought in the comic books the rings were on Fing Fang Foom's Fing Fang Foom was using them before. He had them on each of his talons, right? And then he lost them, right? And so he like got depowered. I see. This is where
I'm not clear on it either. What the comic book origins. My impression of the Mandarin was always that he had like these like 10 rings, which he wore on his fingers, not like as like bracelets or whatever. He would wear them like, and then they were like the alien technology, like kind of like Green Lantern rings or something.
Each one had a different weapon.
They each had different properties to them, and he always looked so weird when he has like the 10 lasers coming from 10 fingers like this, or whenever he would go like this. This looked much cooler in the movie. I loved how like they would come off and on of his arms and allowed him to sort of like do different techniques with it.
And you could see like closer to the martial arts with the ring martial arts that people have too. How they enabled him to like jump really far. I like the creative usage of those abilities. They're like, okay, we're gonna have these abilities, and then we're gonna build off of it, right? And how it was like a rope, how it was like a cutting tool, how it was like a blunt instrument. There was a variety of different applications. I thought it was very creative.
Yeah, and then the whole ending, I guess we'll wrap up with the storyline and just kind of break everything down there. So they destroy it, they save the day, and then they Shang-Chi and Katie, they go back to San Francisco where they're talking to their friend and telling the whole story, and they're not really buying it. But then Wong shows up through the sling ring and says, come on, we need you. He doesn't call them Avengers, but he kind of pulls them into the world of the Avengers, the two of them, right away, saying that we need you in the rings, and then ends up with Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, talking about that the 10 rings have been they have some kind of signal coming from like inside of them that, what does that mean? Is that bringing something? Is that bringing some kind of a threat to Earth or to the universe? We don't know. And that's kind of a little of the mystery. And then we get our second post-credit scene where Zhao Ling has now become the new leader of the 10 Rings, has taken over that compound, and is now training women to be like equal part assassins with like the other 10 Rings people, like her other foot soldiers. Equal opportunity. Hashtag that. So,
she's going to be a villain. I think that's enough.
I think ultimately she's going to become, or like sort of this gray area character who's kind of like, not quite good, not quite bad.
Considering that last part, I just find it very interesting that over the course of the last set of movies and shows, that there's been a diversification of power throughout the Marvel universe in terms of the world. So you have the widows are off somewhere doing something. You have the 10 rings individuals off in Asia, consolidating power. Wakanda is always going to be there, right?
Mhm.
And
You have Power Broker and all that.
with Power Broker and what they'll be probably are they still working out of Madripoor or not? We're not entirely sure, but you just see different pockets of like power like rising, right?
Right.
Wouldn't it make the most sense for the widows to hook up with the 10 rings, because uh, that would make the most amount of sense, but not necessarily. I i feel like there could be something coming um down where these different parties interact or fight for power. Might be interesting, we'll see. But it seems like they've made a point to kind of showcase that there's different sections of power throughout the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm really enjoying about Marvel, is that how more intricate this world has become, because they've done these amazing movies for, I don't know, 18 years. How long has it been? Like 10, 12, 13 years, whatever. And only this year we started doing the MCU podcast here in 2021, starting with WandaVision, which is like this whole new, I guess, the phase 4 era, right? Is what really where we're starting off. So the first 3 phases, and like there are some people who go, Marvel can't sustain this, but
Yeah, they're gonna blow it out of the water.
yeah, like I don't see any momentum slowing down here. I guess that some fans might tune out. Maybe this is, or other people might fall off. But
well, here's the thing. I think DC, if they continue to do what they did with the new Suicide Squad movie, they're going to keep up with them. But they have to embrace and have fun with the dark nature of what DC is. Marvel's got a good lane here because they can bring you can bring the kids in more with the Marvel movies. But I think DC should just understand, like, look how successful Deadpool was. And I know it's not a DC movie, but what they did with Suicide Squad to me is keep doing that. Do Batman like that. Do Superman like that. That's my opinion. I understand people that are hesitant on that kind of stuff. Especially with Superman, I guess.
Well,
But
I think, like, when I think about like the DC characters, because they come more from like that 1930s and 1940s esque origin versus like these Marvel characters, which were largely invented in the 60s and 70s. I just think that there's like this campiness to the DC universe that you have to like counteract by making it more like hard and gritty and whatever, right? So like they can't quite find like the right, I don't know how to appeal to sort of a mass audience for like Marvel can. With some of these characters, because they don't feel as relatable. They're more godlike, you see that, and like that's why shows like The Boys and other things like that, like I think are being so successful because they're kind of doing what DC should be doing with their characters. But at the same time, they're like, no, it's Superman, it's Batman. We have to sell like Happy Meals or whatever. And how
the problem with Superman is that Superman should be Clark Kent a good portion of the time,
right,
with the understanding that he cannot just smash his way to victory.
right.
There's going to be a point where that might be necessary, but he can't be Superman for majority of the movie. It just doesn't work, right? Just like how in Batman, like he was, yes, he was Batman, but he wasn't like, I'm dressed up in Batman and I'm prowling the streets for the majority of the time. He was detecting. The story was unfolding, and he was interacting with that world until you have the final confrontation. Wonder Woman didn't work because it didn't understand what it wanted to be. It wants to be this.
Question the question was about Superman here. Was there a lawsuit with Superman?
I don't know what he's referring to.
I'm not sure what you're.
There's been many lawsuits with Superman.
Okay, guys, speaking of Wonder Woman, Jaemeel, you just brought it up. Can you believe that the principal writer of this movie, Shang-Chi, was the same principal writer for Wonder Woman 1984?
Makes sense to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
That movie probably got rewritten so many damn times that they had like these actors and actresses sign up for these movies not knowing what's going to be, right? They get a brief synopsis, and they're like, "This makes sense." This thing, and then as production continues on, it gets rewritten, and scenes get shot and edited, and it just becomes a total different beast than what it originally was intended. Like, oh, we want rewrites for the third act, and like these movies just become so disjointed when you have so many cooks. Whereas I find with Marvel, there is at least a more consistent, like, Feige is the head writer, or like the head, like, rewriter, I should say, and say, we're going to take the movie in this direction. You have the script. We might change things or ad lib things in it, but this is our structure because it works with the overall narrative that we have for the entire world. There's no
shout out
overall
to
narrative for the entire world in DC, right? So everything's just mishmash, and you can just go in any direction. Yes, there's freedom in that, but also there is the chances that you make a total blunder, which is the scripting of 1984.
Yeah, I just hear David Callahan is the writer's name that we're speaking to. He also did some uncredited rewrites on Ant-Man, and also was one of the writers on Wonder Woman 84. He's also going to be writing the Into the Spider-Verse sequel, or he's as well. He's going to be part of that team.
Hey, he's clear. Like, again, I think Jameel's right. When there's too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to writing, yeah, we get Wonder Woman 1984. You do need Kevin Feige style person, and DC needs to find that person.
They thought it was Snyder, and then they thought it was going to be Jeff Johns, and maybe it still will be Jeff Johns. But I don't know.
I think they should give it to James Gunn. You know, just let him run it. If he doesn't, like, let him do
I don't think
Guardians.
he wants it.
Yeah, he probably doesn't.
But they would give it to him in a heartbeat if he wanted it.
Yeah, like if he wanted it, I'd give it to him, man, because like what he did with that Suicide Squad movie to me is exactly what DC should be doing. You know, because there needs to be an alternative to the Marvel stuff. You know, right now Marvel has got the whole market, and it's because they are like the 5-tool movie where they can get kids, old people, young men.
Right,
women,
they have the
all,
tentpole movies, but now they have like Deadpool, and they can do some R-rated stuff too. And I don't know. We'll see how they try to balance that. Sam just clarifying, like rights over Superman. Yeah, there's been all kinds of rights over Superman, and like
there's no way in hell DC and Warner Brothers is ever going to lose the rights to Superman. They will move heaven and earth to ensure that property, because that's one of the most recognizable characters, not just in entertainment but in the world.
Batman too,
and Batman too.
Yeah, like, but okay, like, what, for instance, if they do a Batman movie, like, and maybe the Batman will be this, I don't think it will be, but maybe it will be, where it's super dark, where Batman is kind of a psycho, because in the comics he's a deranged kind of guy, you know. You might
that's why they haven't done Robin right yet, because it's Robin is like Hit Girl, and Batman should be more like Big Daddy in Kick-Ass, right?
Yeah, yeah. And if they did that, if they did a DC Batman movie like that, I think they're scared. But I think
they're scared they're not gonna make Batman likable. Everyone's gonna realize Batman is kind of, like you're saying,
he's kind of deranged, and he's kind of insane, and he's traumatized again, kind of like the Mandarin Wenwu in this movie. Like, he's kind of like that, because the grief has taken over his motivations, and and that happened to Big Daddy too. Same thing. Like, you know, like, so again, these parallels are coming together, and I just think if they could do a Batman movie like that, I would be so thrilled, you know. But maybe
let's get back to Shang-Chi though, and actually, while we're on it too, like let's rate this movie, this newest installment. Ashley couldn't be with us because it's just hard for her to get to the theater right now, so we'll have to get her rating later when she has a chance to see it. But I'm going high on this, guys. I'm going 9.8. And I'm my only criticism maybe is like, I think some of the drama with maybe the brother sister could have been a little tighter, but like even like that's a pretty small critique, I think. Jaemeel, where are you at?
I'll give it an 8.9.
8.9.
Yeah, 8.9. Yes.
F?
9.3 for me.
9.3. Okay, and that balances us out at a 9.3. So That's the highest thing so far. We really liked Loki. It turns out we like this a little bit better than even Loki. But I really enjoyed. It has an 8.1 right now on IMDb, although it just came out 2 days ago, with just about 18,000 ratings so far. And I did round up to a 10 out of 10 for my vote in IMDb. So Jaemeel, what are we watching next? What's the next thing? Is it Eternals?
I'm sorry. Let me just do the breakdown.
Oh no, it would be What If, right?
I think What If will wrap up before Eternals.
Okay, before What If, guys, I think we need to do individual episodes. Let's not cram it all into one.
You don't think we can? It'll probably be like a 5-hour podcast if we try to do it. But maybe we could do one.
Do it in sets,
or we could do like a podcast run where we talk about each episode in the run. But yeah, so
when I say sets, I mean maybe like we do pairs, like every 2
maybe pairs. Yeah, that would be.
I could do that. Yeah, because they are half-hour episodes.
Eternals is not till November, right?
Correct.
And I am looking forward to. Jeff, I know you've said you've seen the save, and I'm just gonna pull that down. You've seen the Eternals trailer, at least one of them, right?
I saw the most recent one, like the one you saw in the theater. I've seen it.
You saw that one? Okay, so Jaemeel, Jeff got he got there after the previews last night, and this new Eternals trailer looked fantastic to me in IMAX. Are you less excited about it?
I'm just disappointed in people showing. Look, like
I got lost. I've never been.
It's reserved seating, and it just was making me angry that the movie starts. The scheduled time for mine was 7:30, and at 7:40, people were walking in. I'm at the end of the row, and I'm like, I'm not standing up again. You guys, I'm gonna raise my knees up. You gotta walk past me, but like, don't take me out of the movie going experience, right? Like, it was different in terms of my theater where to go to the lobby, you had to wait in line because they had a maximum occupancy that they were dealing with, right? If you were going straight to the movie theater and not buying anything, then you can go straight in. So I had to wait, right, to get into the theater, right? So I had enough time to wait in line, order food, right? And my food order got messed up because I'm like, I wanted a hot dog and nacho combo, and I want a slushie, and they're like, oh, we don't have any slushie. Okay, I'll take a Summersby. Oh, we don't have any hot dogs. Okay, I'm gonna have a Summersby and a nacho. And I was gonna pay with my Scene Club, my wonderful Scene Club, and they're like, oh, we can't use Scene Club with alcohol, so you'd have to do 2 separate orders. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not wasting any more time. Anyways, I sat down and people like know your movies. Like the runtime is clearly explained, right? So don't tell me, oh, you sit down 5 minutes into the movie, get up to go to the bathroom. No, come on.
Yeah.
Know yourself.
I didn't do that.
Know thyself.
Jane and I got in first, and then the preview started, and then Jeff, like he was running late, and so I got to meet.
I got lost. Okay, the GPS to this place was basically like, hey, drive by it on the highway. You've arrived. We're
up in Golf Links. I used to go to that theater when I lived in that part of Hamilton too, so I'm a little more familiar maybe than Jeff was. We could have carpooled as well. Then nothing would have gone wrong. But anyway, just when you're talking about your slushies, Jaemeel, I was thinking about Mariner.
Quailer is awesome, by the way. You can get any drink in the form of a slushie. We got to get like 5 slushies.
Did you get 5 slushies?
I have like a huge slushy container, and I brought it there to dump the slushies in, so I can just have the straw under my mask and drink the entire
Glee
time.
ruined slushies for me, I think.
Well, point of note, you should just stop watching Glee after.
Glee. I did. After season 2, I stopped. But
yes, that is the appropriate time. Glee died at that point.
It died. Yeah, it was when the Glee died. Yeah. So anyway, but I really like that Eternals trailer, and we were talking a lot about Superman and this character that. Is it Icarus? Is that who it is? Because as played by the it's Rob Stark, whoever plays Rob Stark, I forget the actor's name right now. But he was shooting lasers from his eyes, and I'm like, is this guy like Superman? Does he have like the powers of Superman?
Icarus?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people have similar abilities of like what the man you would call Superman.
He flew too close to the sun.
Because Marvel doesn't really have they have Sentry, which is kind of like a version of Superman for them, but. I was like, it would be interesting to see what they do with a character like that in Marvel. having someone that powerful, if that's what he is. But that's kind of what I got the impression. But it seems like it's also like this team of, I don't know. I don't know a lot about Eternals. What I was hearing a lot was like, where's Marvel heading? And it seems like they're what they're calling the Jack Kirby route, which is going to be more about the space and more about like the existential threats from the Celestials and the greater universe. Now that like the Infinity War storyline is gone, some people are saying, well, I like the more Earth-driven stories, the more like street level stories, and not necessarily these grand, amazing space adventures and secret wars and whatever they might do. But I don't know. Where do you stand on that, Jaemeel? Do you like?
I think that you're gonna get both, because like you're not necessarily gonna see Shang-Chi in space, right? Shang-Chi in space, he's like, I'm floating in like the universe, and I'm just shooting out rings or whatever. He's probably gonna be earthbound, and I guess we can get into this aspect. I think that we're gonna see a split in terms of like Thor, Guardians, Nova, maybe the externals, leading to Fantastic Four being dealing with more spatial threats, and then Captain Marvel, and then you're gonna have Miss Marvel, your She-Hulks, your Hawkeyes, your Shang-Chi's, Wong and Doctor Strange and Ant-Man dealing
when we
more
get like
with,
Daredevil eventually, maybe, or if they bring
maybe
back
sooner than we anticipate,
right.
and Spider-Man kind of dealing with planetary slash planetary dimensionally Earth conflicts,
as he's
right?
like crossing over with Doctor Strange and the more mystical aspects of things and the
Yes.
multiverse and all those things.
So
Well-
trying to understand where this, let's see if my theory is correct. Just bear with me, that we see the beginning of Shang-Chi in the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, with Wong leaving to go to a place with snow, Alaska maybe, to meet the Abomination, to fight in the Fight Club in Shang-Chi, right?
So Spider-Man takes place before this.
No, during this, right? And that's why when Wong brings Shang-Chi back to the Sanctum, Doctor Strange is not there to be involved because he's still with Spider-Man and the No Way Home situation.
Right. I guess
Because when they say
much,
present day, that's my issue with it, because we don't know what present day means.
right. Yeah. I get like, let's get me an exact date.
I mean, there is a theory. I don't know if you've seen the most recent New Rockstars about the What If Doctor Strange episode, Jaemeel, but did you see the theory that their theory is that Doctor Strange in No Way Home is actually the evil Doctor Strange that we saw in the What If? Because and they have a couple of clues that could point to that.
We'll be doing Spider-Man before Eternals then, right?
No, Spider-Man is after Eternals.
After Eternals, okay.
Yeah. So it could be that I forget the character's name in Eternals, could have either brought the rings or created the rings, right? Because 7 centuries would kind of line up with when they said that they arrived to Earth, right? The Eternals, right? And then the rings could have during their sleep, the quote unquote eternal sleep, the rings could have gone the hangs of Wenwu, right? And that's why he never had any conflicts with the Eternals, because the Eternals were not involved with it. And maybe the different heavenly cities were somehow involved with the Eternals. So with the eternal energy and the rings combined, it sent out that beacon, and that's why the Eternals tie into Shang-Chi and also the external planetary threat that might be involved.
Right.
Well.
Eternals comes out November, and then Spider-Man doesn't come out
November.
until December.
Yeah.
November 5th. Okay. Yeah. November 5th. Remember the 5th of November.
Right. And after Spider-Man, we'll get the Doctor Strange movie.
So yeah,
That's
December 17th. It's actually before Christmas.
Yeah. So Doctor Strange is until February?
March 25th.
So yeah,
Usually
March
they have a
25th.
February movie.
And then we'll get Thor: Love and Thunder
in May 6th, and then we get Black Panther: Wakanda Forever July 8th. Then we get the Marvels in November 11th, 2022. Then we get Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in February 2023, and then we get Guardians 3 in May 2023.
I think Hawkeye might be coming out in February then.
Yeah, I think we might do Hawkeye or another Disney Plus show of some kind or something like
because
that.
Because next is She-Hulk next?
I'm not quite sure.
No, I think it's Hawkeye first, then She-Hulk.
I think Hawkeye will probably hit first.
It's Miss Marvel. No, it's Hawkeye, and then Miss Marvel. So Hawkeye comes out in November, and then Miss Marvel's slated next in late 2021. Then Moon Knight, and then She-Hulk, then Secret Invasion.
I keep forgetting they're doing Moon Knight. Oh man,
Moon Knight's gonna be great.
I know it's gonna be amazing, but
street level.
Yeah, and he's a funny character as well.
So if Miss Marvel is November, that means we're gonna have Inhumans introduced in Externals.
Yeah, right?
Probably. And then it's Hawkeye. Hawkeye's probably gonna be February. No, it says late 2021. I don't think that makes any sense. If Miss Marvel, unless they have both running at the same time,
yeah,
there's not enough weeks. If it's 8 episodes, that's 2 months. So it's going to be 2022. I think it's going to be February.
All right. Well, we're going to find out. Well, we'll be here to talk about all of them here on Super Mario Brothers podcasting as they come out. Have I forgotten anything?
Are we wrapping up?
Well, we're coming up on 2 hours. Yeah, I think we might be wrapping up.
I thought, okay.
Sorry,
you had more theories. Where's your theories? Like, what's going on? I had like a whole theory I was going to drop down.
Okay. Well, theories. I think that we're getting our new event, like they're creating like the next generation of the Avengers, right? And it's going to feature, I think, Shang-Chi and also Katie, in some role, and also, Captain Marvel is clearly one of the leaders of this new generation. Bruce Banner apparently is going to be along for the ride. Wong, Doctor Strange, presumably Spider-Man, whoever the successor Black Panther is going to be. I don't know what exactly to expect there yet, because but who knows? But whoever that is will likely be in the mix. We also have Ant-Man, who's also still pretty prominent,
and the Wasp,
and Goliath, I guess too, right?
He might be a bad guy. Goliath will probably be a bad guy at some point.
And you got the new Black Widow, and you got the Dark Avengers, with like U.S. Agent, and then you also have what's going to happen.
Morris?
That's Morris. She's very upset. She's directing me to Talo.
Take a right here.
Take a right. Take a right. Take a left. You might want to speed up.
Yeah. Whether or not we see I guess some of the other former Avengers, like we also know these this new young Avengers group is sort of, we see this coming, right? Like the young Hawkeye with his daughter. We had like the kids from WandaVision, which we think maybe come back in Multiverse of Madness in some way. We have who else has got the young characters? I guess there's that son, the guy who's like the grandson of that old Captain America guy who was in the prison. Yeah, you know who I mean, right? I'm not sure. And then I'm trying to think if Loki had somebody like that but I can't think of anybody.
Sylvie could be involved.
Sylvie, I guess, could be involved or something like that. But I think they're trying to set up a new generation, right? Because like Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., they've all moved on. So now they're kind of they're keeping some of them around clearly, but
they got too expensive, those guys. Let's face it. Let's be real.
All right. My theory. I still think they can do Iron Fist. So let's get into
Would you reboot him?
Me personally, no. I think a lot of the issues with Iron Fist wasn't necessarily with the idea of Iron Fist. It was one, showrunner and writers, and two, how Marvel television was run in general. And it did not do any favors to that character. They were saying that I forget his name, the Finn Jones did not have that much interest in training. He did not have the experience nor the time to properly get trained, like we see in this, and also in what's her name? My favorite character in Iron Fist, who plays daughter of the dragon. What's her name?
I can look it up.
Misty Knight, Misty Knight, and what's the other one? Misty and who's her counterpart? Misty and
I'm not an Iron
who
Fist
becomes
expert by any
the
means.
Iron Fist? Spoilers if you haven't seen Iron Fist.
Most of
Colleen Wing,
most of those
Colleen Wing.
Netflix series, like the Iron Fist, the whole the Defenders, if you will, like I don't think that worked really well.
I disagree. Colleen Wing, right? Colleen Wing, she as the actress who plays her, also Game of Thrones. She had an extensive martial arts background, so when it came to do Iron Fist, she looked like head and shoulders a much smoother performer than Finn Jones did.
I thought like Luke Cage was okay.
Yeah. So Kun Lao is one of the heavenly cities that has a defender, just like Ta Lao. Although Ta Lao is not necessarily one of Marvel's legendary heavenly cities, but just imagine you have Kun Lao who has a defender at the gates, preventing people to go in, which is almost similar to what we see with Ta Lao, right? So in Marvel Comics, there is the 7 heavenly cities, and each one has a defender, which also every so often they have a tournament where uh, all the cities bring send a representative that have to fight. So just imagine that a sequel of Shang-Chi, wherever it may be, has that tournament, and they choose Shang-Chi um, as the fighter for Tai Lao, right? Because of his ancestral connections to it, right? And one of those fighters could be the villain, quote unquote villain or antagonist, is the Iron Fist, which in the comic books, Shang-Chi and Iron Fist did fight against each other. It would be an interesting situation, and I think that would also bring in a lot of other elements like um, more of the mysticism of the different realms. So Doctor Strange and Wong could be involved because a lot of that, the elemental energy, I think was kind of introduced in Doctor Strange. I don't think Katie is going to be a quote unquote archer going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if she becomes a sorceress.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Like, well, I think you can do a lot with that character in terms of giving her powers or abilities, like, whatever. She's not based on any character from a comic book, right? Like she's just,
To my knowledge, no.
created for this. So you can, like,
So my theory is not necessarily based in terms of like, Ant-Man's gonna show up with Shang-Chi and everything. I'm just thinking about the sequel to Shang-Chi that I want, and that is a tournament, right? We got introduced to 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 this world, and I want to see a little bit more of this world. Also, I want to the thing that this movie also did not really show us, and I'm glad they didn't because it should be kept to the sequel, is um supposedly he killed this dude. What was the whole scenario around that? And because it doesn't give me the impression that he just killed him and then just walked away. Something must have happened that changed his outlook, because I think he meant it when he said he was going to be back in 3 days, but something happened,
right.
and we need to see what that.
Well, maybe he orphaned another child when he killed that guy or something like that.
Sure.
Or there's because the fact that he does have like this, he is a killer right now. He can't take that back. That's part of who his character is, right? And we saw he was willing to kill Death Dealer, until he was stopped. So he has that darkness in him as well. They talk about that in the movie. Like, you have to accept both parts of you. It's kind of like his father and his mother, the yin and the yang. That was definitely like the struggle he was trying, but he definitely seems certainly mostly good, like by all accounts.
Yes, and hopefully one day down the line he trains Spider-Man in Spider-Fu.
So that'd be fun.
Because in the comic books, Peter Parker loses his spider sense, and he needs Shang-Chi to help him defend himself. So he actually learns martial arts. Finally, Spider-Man learns how to fight. So
yeah. Do you think Spider-Man will be going to sing karaoke with them at the bar?
Don't you think Peter would do it?
Yeah, he'd do it. Yeah, he'd be like, I heard this really old song from the 80s.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to get that theory out there on the record. I'm done. You can.
Well, no, yeah, because okay, like those Netflix shows, they never really drew me in. Although I did watch Luke Cage the most, and I thought that some of the Daredevil action was really fantastic. But story wise, I thought it was a little bit, and like even Defenders, which I was excited about, I kind of lost me as I was watching it. And so I agree with you that I would like to see more information around like how is Talo different from what's the place that
Kun Lao.
Kung Lao
Yeah.
and what and sort of like how do you build that out, but I'm still trying to just get my head around what I watched last night again. And
with the multiverse kind of being in effect, like all those things technically can be quote unquote canon, but we can just see variations of it that fit into the MCU.
right,
So,
we could get a new Iron Fist, you
Yeah,
know,
we could
and
get
they
a
can
new
just say, well,
Iron
that was just a different dimension or whatever.
we can get the same actor for Luke Cage and the same actor for Jessica Jones, same actor for Punisher and Daredevil, but Iron Fist could be different or a different version, and they can
Sure.
tweak it however they want to, where everything that happened still existed. But in this world, this is the path that they decide to do. And I think we are going to get Daredevil in No Way Home. I think we are going to get Jessica Jones in the Captain Marvel and the Marvels. And the Punisher, I believe, is eventually going to be coming. He's going to be part of the street level individual. So I think we're going to see the legacy. Sorry, and also we're going to see members of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. going to be in Secret Invasion and other things. So I think the Netflix history is still going to be in play, but it's going to be MCU's
They
version
can
of
pick
it.
and choose what they want to take from it
Yeah.
too. They have that luxury too now,
Which is
especially
fine.
with all this. Hey, good for them. They figured they cracked the code because they're like, we have so many universes, and instead of trying to like hide away from that, they're like, we're just gonna have things cross over, which is the way to do it, which is what they always did in the comic books when they had all these continuities and different things. Like, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to be worried about canon. You just have to create like an explanation for the audience that they'll accept, or at least some will accept. Like, just like they did with Star Trek when they created the Kelvin timeline. Like, just explain, like, okay, well, this is an offshoot, and so it's different, and therefore we can have a new look to things, or we can have whatever creatives want that they feel like hindered by what's come before. You can explain it away. You just don't. I think it annoys certain types of fans when you just like bulldoze over that and just do a hard reboot sometimes. In my opinion. Anyway, I think that's it. 2 hours. I'm getting hungry. Let's get some lunch. Thank you for joining us for this podcast, everyone, and commenting out there. Let us know what else you might want us to cover and discuss. What else am I forgetting? The 10 rings.
No, I have big eyes now. See, I'm awake.
Big eyes. Jaemeel has woken up, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed for sure now. And we'll be back, I guess, to talk about What If next, in maybe a couple series of podcasts to cover those different episodes. We'll be figuring that out. Also, check out our other podcasts 3 times a week. We're talking about Big Brother 23 USA. We're now going into week 9 of that show. That's only got a couple weeks left. If you've been watching any of that, check it out. We're Jaemeel, Jeff, and I talking on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, always at 9:30 Eastern we'll be into doing Survivor probably very soon too, when that show comes back, and of course the Marvel podcast and different one-offs. We even talked about even throwing like that Dear Evan Hansen podcast maybe into the mix somewhere along the line. So check out all that stuff. Also check out our Star Trek theme channel that I mentioned earlier, Live Long in Podcast, where we talk about Star Trek multi-times a week, new and old. Monday nights, Star Trek the Original Series. Tuesday nights, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Thursdays, we're talking about new episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks right now, as they're continuing their second season. We're going to be doing Star Trek Picard eventually too, and all the new properties that come out. Star Trek Days next week, and so we'll be anything Star Trek. Check out our Live Long in Podcast. And then Trivial Debates is our monthly channel, or our other channel with our monthly game show. We argue about movies, TV, sports, and more. Jaemeel just hosted that last episode. You can check that out. Everyone gets points for different arguments. And we'll be doing one for the end. And there goes Jeff. Okay, so
Morris called for him.
Morris was calling. All right. Well, I think that's the end of the show. We will be signing off. And here comes Jeff. You're back.
Yeah, sorry, I hit back by accident.
All right. Well, Jeff, you want to give us some wisdom to close out the show?
don't let grief overtake your life. I think that was the moral of this movie, and I think that's what we should go out with.
Yes, I think that's a good one. And yes, Jaemeel, I am wearing red in honor of this movie. All
Yes.
right, have a good one, everybody. We'll see you on